So, Mike, welcome.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So just because I haven't gotten there yet.
Sure.
Right? Like, at what stage in your career did you, like, hit $1 million?
You know what? I'll tell you when I get there. How about that, right?
Me too.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
That's right.
All right. So we have, here's what we have. Like, it's a conversation, right? Like,
Sure.
we're going to shoot some rapid fire questions.
Sure.
And you just give me the answer.
The first thing that comes
there,
out.
right? So maybe not the first thing.
Oh, let me filter it just a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
PG version.
Yeah. So are you a morning person or a night owl?
Oh, man, I am big time a morning person. Married to a night owl.
Like morning.
Like morning, like we get up early, we get going, we hit the day really hard. And then by the time dinner time comes, man, I am the most unexciting person in the world. I do claim victory, though, because my wife traditionally has always been a night owl, right? Because the morning person marries the night owl. That's how this thing works, right? But I have one. She's followed her leader, and now she's a morning. She probably doesn't need to hear me say that, but
she'll hear it.
But truly, like, it's crazy. Our kids are all morning folks, and well, that's not true. Two out of the three are morning people. The other one, my daughter, she just deals with life when she gets it.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
that's good. But you got the advantage. I mean, 2 out of 3.
I got the advantage.
Wake up
That's
in the morning,
right.
She's at night.
Whether the daughter wants to do whatever, she's just a part of this family.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all about competition.
Incredible.
Man.
Yeah, sure.
You win.
I love it.
Would you rather go on like a beach vacation, or is it like mountain retreat that kind of gives you more like I'm relaxed?
I grew up in the mountains. I'm pretty much a hillbilly. I love the mountains. I would go back there anytime the opportunity happens. Just love getting back up in the woods, starting a fire and hanging out. I mean a campfire, not a forest fire.
Hopefully.
Right? That's right. No, man, I love the mountains.
Where'd you grow up?
Grew up in East Tennessee.
Okay.
In the Appalachians.
Oh, man.
That's
Beautiful,
right.
Beautiful land.
That's right. If I had a family crest, I'm sure it would be like a corncob pipe or something along those lines.
I love it. So you talking about the mountains. I'm thinking about, man, a big old giant black bear. Wow.
They're there. They are there.
You're not afraid?
That's right. No, not really.
Wow.
Most of the time, I don't know, I think God's got a sense of humor. He created nature, so if you act big and loud, most of the time, the bear will go the other way.
Oh, wow.
I do. I mean, I remember hiking with my dad on the Appalachian Trail, and we'd hiked all day, and you could hear in the bushes a rustle. You know what I mean? Like there was something big back there, and I froze. I was in front. I froze, and my dad saying, dude, regardless of whatever it is, we need to keep going to get around it. You know what I mean? He was so logical.
Wow.
For me at 12 years old, I'm like, okay, that's probably a good life lesson. Just keep moving.
Just keep
Whatever
whatever
it
comes
is.
up.
Yeah.
Just keep moving.
Keep moving.
There you go.
That. I love it.
That's a good.
Hillbilly wisdom right there.
Was there a big? I was just wondering. Was there a big like real estate industry like up there in the mountains?
There always has been. I remember. I'm in my 50s now. I remember being, an early teenager, and all of my high school friends. I mean, there were 3 or 4 last names. We won't make any jokes about how family trees don't branch very much. But there's 3 or 4, and these guys own the restaurants and they own the hotels. But it's really interesting in the last 20 years how much real estate has been bought and sold.
Yeah.
In this little vacation town where I grew up.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, welcome to Birmingham.
Yeah, thank you.
Great to have you.
I've actually lived in Birmingham longer than I lived anywhere else in my life at this point, so this is home.
There you go. And you still have the mountains.
I still have the mountains. I can go visit my mom and dad for free.
There you go.
Awesome.
There you go. That's the way it works.
That's
right?
even better, right?
That's right.
I feel like they should charge him.
That's right.
I'm coming home, Mom.
This is called, mom and dad's Airbnb or whatever it is.
Awesome,
it works.
man. Beautiful,
That's
beautiful.
super cool. That's super cool. All right, so are you into reading books or watching movies?
Oh my gosh, I'm an avid reader. Love reading. On a Friday night after it's been a long week and I've done all I can do. I do enjoy my wife and I sitting on the couch turning something on the TV. We don't really watch a lot of movies in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sit at home, sweatpants and just relax.
Awesome.
But day to day, man, I love to read.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, Mike, cats or dogs? What you like
Oh,
best?
man. Dogs
Cat
all
guy,
day
dog
long.
guy. Dogs?
The only purpose a cat serves was, for people who live back in the woods and they have mice issues, cats are there for that purpose. But otherwise, if you just want companionship, dogs are the way it goes.
Man, dude, I don't know. I'm a cat person.
I'm a dog. I'm a dog person too, Mike. Cats just does something to me.
When I was about 6 years old, we had this little dog, and I remember this so clearly now, so many years later. But I was throwing rocks at it, and so my dad came up. He's like, "Dude, you can't do that. Like, he trusts you." And he said, if it was a cat, it'd be okay. But it's a dog, and there, I'm just kidding. He didn't actually say that.
Yeah. Wow.
He did scold me, but it wasn't about the cats.
Yeah.
Wow, beautiful.
Well, you know what I like about cats? It's like they're just there, right? Dogs.
They're
like,
not needy, right?
They're not
like,
needy. That's a
dogs like, pet me, give me attention, all that kind of stuff. Our cat's like, I'm just there, like sometimes I like you, sometimes I don't. So, but it's fine.
There's actually a lot of wisdom in that I can see, because when we're living life and we're moving, if I sit down and I just want to just sit down and relax a minute, and my dog comes up and is pawing and throws a slobbery tennis ball in my lap, I'm like, dude, leave me alone. I can see the value of a cat.
Yeah. I'm glad I completed a little bit that. Yeah.
Oh man, so Mike, adventure or relaxation? Which one you prefer best?
Oh. We're probably boring people. So to go to the mountains and then relax, right? Or when my wife went on our honeymoon, we went on our 20th anniversary trip, had a great adventure to get there, but then once we're there, we just relax. So maybe a little bit of both. Probably more relax.
All right.
What do you think?
Love it. I love it. I'm more of a adventurous guy. I like to be gone and robust, riding bikes and doing crazy stuff.
No, man.
Bungee jumping,
Racing, yeah.
Lounge chair for me.
Mike can pull
whitewater rafting,
Have you ever parachuted, skydive?
I have, yeah.
I just, after knowing you a little bit, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, not afraid, man. Not afraid.
Dude, that's awesome.
I love it, yeah.
All right, so we're going to move into section 2 of this amazing program so far. So we're gonna go from like personal to more like real estate related stuff. So a lot of people, when they're doing like home improvements or whatever, so they really sometimes are lost, right? Like they don't know which area they need to renovate, or which renovation gives them more value for the house. So again, like some rapid questions of like, what would they, if they only have a choice between the two, which one would be better for them to renovate, right? So would it be a new roof or landscaping makeover?
You have to choose. So the rule is you got to choose one.
Just one. They only have a budget for one. Which one would you rather advise them to do?
I think from a value standpoint, I would say roof.
Yeah.
Roof over landscape. Landscape's changeable, but I think roofs, especially now in the industry, getting insurance can be such a challenge. And a 20-year-old roof is not always easy to insure. Not every company wants to do it.
Right.
So the better investment, if you're going to sell your home, in my opinion, is to get that roof done.
Okay. Makes sense.
I like me.
Yeah.
Very much so, for sure.
Second one is very interesting. Would it be a smart home upgrade or a kitchen remodel?
Is this a Tennessee? I'm just kidding. No more Tennessee jokes. No, I think kitchen remodel all day long.
Yeah.
There are a few people who probably would appreciate the smart home upgrade, but no, I think the kitchen all day long. I don't know if do you guys spend most of your time in the kitchen at your homes?
I love the kitchen.
Yeah.
By the way, I love cooking.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
same. I think money's spent well there.
Yeah.
Right. So like you don't see a point where like smart home remodel is gonna outperform, or it would be a better investment than the kitchen remodel would be. Like with all the technology coming out and AI and all these things, do you see a world where people would be like, no, I'm definitely investing in smart home rather than kitchen?
Yeah, no, I think it varies. Again, you're giving me the either or choices, but in reality, this is why we love real estate, right? Because it's hardly ever either or. It's usually a sliding scale depending on if the kitchen is doable. I can absolutely see where, again, as my 16-year-old, very much a tech guy, very much aware of what can AI do, how can it make my life better or more efficient. Absolutely. Within a very small period of time, he's not going to care if it is a farmhouse sink or if it's the standard countertop. He's going to care much more about having AI being able to tap into, or whatever it is, but being able to tap into different facets of his home. So I can see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Different dynamic these days with kids. You hit it right on the head for sure.
I think if you're a seller today, at the time of this recording, I think your money is better spent on a kitchen upgrade. But that's not always going to be the case here in the near future.
Well, you can add an Alexa in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
Oh, Alexa, cook some bread.
I would say add a Siri as a Apple guy, but it doesn't really work the same. It's not the same thing.
I knew it will trigger you. If I say Alexa.
I love it.
I would love to say I have a point, but you're right, actually.
It's good. That's awesome. So, finished basement or an updated master bedroom?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that's a really, really good one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm seeing? Okay, I will answer your question.
Gotcha.
And then I may extrapolate. But I think redoing a master bedroom, including the ensuite, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I think that's going to get a bigger return by far than finishing a basement. For working with buyers that I'm working with, I still see a lot of people who are happy to have a storage area in the basement or a workshop in the basement that doesn't have to be finished.
Gotcha.
I think you will appeal to more buyers by having a really nice resort-style master suite. Primary suite, I think, that is the new term that we're using now.
Yes.
But I think you'll appeal to more buyers investing there. And I think a lot of buyers will say, well, it wouldn't cost us that much if we wanted to finish this space in the basement. So that's kind of the reasoning that I tend to find from time to time.
And also just with value too. I mean, it adds more value to that master ensuite than just that basement. Is, you kind of elaborate on that a little bit as far as it's on a half.
That's right.
Of what you kind of give us point. A little bit about what you're saying about that, just how much it costs.
That's right.
To have me is what you call it the see-through, not the see-through. Might help me out a little bit. We have windows in the basement. What you call it?
Oh, the daylight
basement.
Yep.
Lord. Anyway, but go ahead.
Yeah. No.
So
I think
can you expand? I think that was a good point. Can you expand a little bit on the half portion? Like, if someone redid their basement, why would it count as like half the square footage versus?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great question. That's a great question. When an appraiser values a home, and if you look in our MLS, you'll see this delineation. But when an appraiser values a home, they value the square footage above grade, as in the main level or upper levels, at we'll call that at full value, and any a finished square footage below grade is typically valued at 45 to 50% of that standard. And so we break it out in our MLS. If you see living space or living area square footage, that generally is going to be main and upper. And so it just goes back to the convention of how an appraiser values a home.
Yep.
You was talking about windows earlier. So energy efficient windows or solar panels?
Yeah. Today, at this time, I would say energy efficient windows. We replaced those at our house not too long ago, and it's almost like everybody's got a story to tell about how much their electric bill went down. But truly, I mean,
every time you have someone over, you have to point out
dude,
the windows.
Look at these windows. And you know what's funny too is what's interesting is when you've got windows that are cloudy, because the insulation seal is broken, there's condensation. Typically, they'll cover them up with curtains or with blinds. But man, when you get new windows in and you've got friends over, man, you're opening those puppies up. Look at all this natural light, right? Anyway, so I'm a big fan of windows.
I love windows.
Do you also keep the tag? Right, you got to keep the tag for they.
So the tax is that so kind of Give us a little bit about the tax incentive that you get by adding those energy efficient windows.
Yeah, for a few years now, right? Yeah. You get a little bit of a tax credit. I think it's a credit versus a deduction, but I think you get a credit back for when you make your home more efficient.
Yeah,
yep.
green energy
yep.
kind of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. I did see a news report here locally in Birmingham. It's probably been about a year ago, but it was a gentleman who has in Homewood has solar panels, and he creates enough energy current that he's able to sell some back to Alabama Power.
Wow!
And so he powers his entire home from his solar panels and has leftover residual electricity. I think that's the coolest concept.
That's amazing.
If I need to go back to my high school reunion and feel like a winner, I think that might be the story to go with.
Not the windows.
I sell electricity to the power company. I don't know. It just sounds really cool, right?
Increasing that stock value, right? Yes. Awesome.
Elon Musk is right here with us today. I can charge your Tesla.
So, Mike, coarse countertops or hardwood floors? What,
Yeah. All right, this is one of those questions where it really depends.
Yeah.
What I love about these questions is it points out of why I feel like I bring value to my sellers, because we're giving clarity. If the carpet, if the floor is carpeted, we're going to go with hardwood floors. If the floors are not carpeted, but the floors look aged, they have that nice patina. If they look like they've been worn and loved, I probably will go with a nicer countertop. But it depends on the state of the home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful. I love
Basically,
it,
Mike's trying to get out of the question.
That's right.
And,
if you said today, countertops. I love the kitchen. I think the kitchen's a great return.
Yeah,
I'll be in the kitchen.
And having the coarse countertops. Go ahead.
No.
And having the coarse countertops too, I mean, there's a opportunity there that is not. You don't get stains and stuff like you would if you had the other type of countertops with the granite countertops.
Right.
It's stain real easy. So
I
love coarse for sure.
Yeah.
You must be drinking lots of wine at your house because that's what you think about.
Yes, them stains.
No marble in it.
No marble, but definitely granite for sure.
That's right.
At least. All right, so we're going to move a little bit into the section number 3.
Yeah.
Which is, we as realtors, our job sometimes stressful, right? But there's a lot of things that could happen. They're like on the funnier side, or you pick up your phone and you call your wife, and you're blessed because your wife is a realtor too, so you don't have to explain the terminology, so she gets it.
Yeah.
So tell us if you have a funny or bizarre story that happened during your real estate career.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so many things happen when you work with a lot of people, because people are funny creatures, right?
Yeah.
I can think of one. I sold a house and just on the outskirts of the city, so it was not the city. And my seller, she was just a cantankerous, grumpy little. She was hard to work with.
Wow.
She loved me. No doubt. But she was just hard to work with. Well, in prepping for closing, I said, hey, you've got to get your stuff out.
Yep.
Well, we didn't know, and this happens a lot in real estate, you don't always know everything about your buyer. If you're selling, you just get a contract with a name, and you can research and Google that person, whatever. But you don't always know everything about that person. So anyway, long story short, you got to get your stuff out, because in Alabama, if we close and your stuff's there, that conveys to the buyer, well, she didn't get it out.
Yep.
So she called me and said, tell the buyer I'm coming over after closing. So I called the buyer's agent. And I said, hey, Mrs. So-and-so needs to come get a few more things. And the agent said, are you alone? I said, yeah. She said, can anybody hear me talking? I said, no, ma'am. There's that's bad, right?
It's really bad.
Quiet time.
And this has been a little, there had been tension.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so we're after closing. Are you alone? Can anybody hear me? No, I'm good. What's up? She's like, look, she said, the buyer actually is a police officer. And because of how he has to be careful in any home, it is not uncommon that a police officer would bring a drug dog, just to walk through, because you want to inspect a police officer
In
wants
the
to find
grandmother's
that before y'all. You're laughing. You know where the story's going. and so anyway, so that's what happened, and he had found a bunch of drugs. And so what she's telling me is, do not, because she's threatening. I am going to go get my stuff.
Yeah.
She's like, this other realtor. She was fantastic. She said, Ryan, tell your client, do not, but you can't tell her why.
Oh wow.
You can't tell her.
That is bizarre.
You're in the middle of it, right? And you can't even say.
Whoa.
Why.
So anyway, there was and I can't remember all the details, but it took a few minutes for me to say, how bad do you really want those Christmas decorations from 30 years ago? You have a new house. You need new decorations, right? So it all turned out fine, but I was a little concerned.
Right.
But it's funny in real estate. It didn't happen to me. One of my good friends, a mentor when I first started in business, was out showing houses one day, and this house was vacant, which means should be nobody there. Mm-hmm. But he knocks on the door.
Vacant means.
Squatters. That's what vacant means. That's what
should mean.
Should, SHOULD, right? Knocks on the door because you do that out of habit. Well, sure enough, while he's trying to put the key in, the door opens. A couple inside who don't own the house and don't live there were enjoying the privacy of this house that they don't own.
Whoa.
And they had no idea.
Wow.
They had no idea that someone was going to come and look at the house. Bananas. So anyway, he got an eyeful that day.
Wow.
Yeah, they did not buy the house. They took off.
Needless to say.
Wow.
Funny things happen, man.
So you didn't see the moon, did you?
It wasn't me. It was my friend. He was like, dude. So hey, in his mind, it was a little bit of pride because he was able to keep his eyes on the professional the whole time. He never looked around for anything else. I'm like, I think you're lying. I don't know about that, but
yeah, that's wow.
When you're working with people, right?
You just never know,
crazy
man.
things.
You never know.
I know you're going into like people's houses. You know what I mean? Like as a realtor, especially if it's not vacant. I often, I don't know what you guys do. I often especially if it's not vacant, I always knock on the door.
Right.
Even if I have like the key from the super box or the lock box, always knock on the door because you never know.
You just never know.
If the realtor, maybe sometimes they forget to tell them there's a showing at that time.
Yeah.
And,
you just don't. Or if the husband approves the showing through the software that we use, right? Mm-hmm. But the wife wasn't necessarily aware, or they didn't communicate, or how that goes. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. It's just common courtesy.
One of the things I think that most of the public doesn't understand, when you become a realtor, not only do you have to go to class, you have to pass an exam and graduate, then you have to pass the state exam,
exactly,
which there's a significant fail rate there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you have to get fingerprinted. The government takes very seriously that we have access to houses, and so there is a lot of safeguards there. It's not just about, hey, I passed my test and I'm coming in. Yes. There's a lot going on there. So
yeah, that's a good point to pass. Because sometimes people are hesitant. Rightly so. It's your house. You have a bunch of people coming in and out because you're trying to sell it.
Well, I think just putting myself in the place of my sellers, there's a certain amount of dignity.
Yeah.
When you go into someone's home, there's just a certain amount of dignity that you've got to treat that. When you're going into each of the rooms where they live their life,
right.
That's kind of a heavy concept.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Another question for you.
Yes.
If you have to name just one, I know we're giving you a lot of ultimatums here and a lot of
I love it.
stuff, but we're trying to make it tough, right?
Right.
You have the experience, and we got to take advantage of it.
I love it.
So tell us about the biggest misconception that people have about realtors in general.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Here's what I think I would see most of the time. The misconception I think a lot of people have is that when they call me to help them sell their home, and I first go out there, they think that I'm going to give them a price that their home's going to sell for. Right. Mm-hmm. So and the way I see that is if a seller is interviewing 2 or 3 other realtors, and sometimes the seller will go with the realtor that gave them the highest value. Mm-hmm. Not realizing, and therein lies the misconception, it's the market that determines the value of the house.
100%.
What we do, and I don't know that every realtor is this way, but what I thoroughly enjoy is being a consultant. If a large Fortune 500 company hires a consultant, they're hiring them to get truth, and that's what they're paying for. Mm-hmm. And so that's the hat that I put on. I see that most often, that the realtor picks the price that the house will sell for. And that is just not the case. The market determines that price. What we're here to do is to guide you through that process so that you can maximize your benefit.
So what we're really saying for sellers specifically is like, it's not a rule that you should be impressed with the realtor that would give you the highest valuation of your house, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it could be true. It could be that, yes, you can get that price, but it doesn't mean that that is the best, like the best approach.
That's right.
To selling your house.
That's right. I like to give my sellers about three prices. The price number one is what will the market likely give you for that? What will it probably sell for?
Gotcha.
Price number two is what would it appraise for? And you said, well, why does that matter? Because what it matters is we might be able, especially in the market we came out of, we might be able to get a price that is unbelievably high, but it may not appraise for that. And 9 times out of 10, what the seller walks away with is closer to the appraised price, not necessarily what somebody was willing to pay for it. The third price I give them is the strategic marketing price. When we present your home to the market, what price do we want to choose? And there are pros and cons. If we choose to market a higher priced home, there might be some reasons for that. The timing, how long is that seller willing to wait? If we market the price on the lower side of what we expect, then there are pros and cons with that approach as well.
Okay.
And I think this was saying that I think there's a little bit of luck, because you got that one buyer that may come through and just give you the ultimate price.
Well, and it was funny when I'm running comparables for my sellers. I learned this a long time ago from a mentor. When I'm running comparables, my goal is to get 10, 12, maybe 15 similar houses in the last 3 to 6 months. I will throw out the lowest automatically without looking at it, and I will throw out the highest without looking at it. Here's the reason why, and I learned this, like I said, a long time ago. You can always find the one crazy person who was willing. I love
it. I like that.
But you don't want to build a strategy around that one crazy person. You build a strategy around the market as a whole.
I love it.
That's why those are basically the outliers of the equation.
That's right.
Throw them out. Smart.
Trash out the high and trash out the low.
That's right.
I love it.
That's right. That's exactly right.
What if there's only 2?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. It's anybody's game at that point.
Right? Yeah.
My God, we just talked about a lot of things, man. So, if you had to sell a haunted house, what would be
a haunted house?
What would be your sale pitch?
Excuse me, dude. A haunted house. I guess we're going to disclose this puppy. We're going to sell it, right?
We're going to sell it.
How about this? Hey, it's got great history, right?
I love it.
How about it's great? It's great for entertaining. Here's what we do. Sell it as a paranormal investment.
Whoa!
And then advertise it around the country, because I'm sure that there are crazy people who will come stay on purpose using Airbnb or VRBO. This could be a great investment opportunity. Because there will be people that will come to experience the creaking floors and the whispering walls.
You're a smart guy. I love that answer.
Well, speaking about haunted, I can give you an idea, by the way.
Yeah.
We went to a haunted house, like an official haunted house. I forgot what city it was. And as we were going through the tour, you have like the tour guide, right? And like we're walking out at the end of the tour, they're talking about this lady that she's she used to love like orange perfume. And as you walk through this hallway, and you can smell it.
Huh?
And everybody was like,
wow.
"Oh yeah, I can smell this." And then I look up, and there's like that thing that right? I'm like, dude, just hide it, man. Like at least
try.
At least try to put it in like a little box. There's like it's up there with an orange picture on it. Like
wow.
And nobody thought about like looking up.
All right, so I sold a house. I sold a house a year and a half ago.
Gotcha.
So an investor bought this home. He bought it out of foreclosure. He redid it, and he did a great job with it.
Yeah.
But as we were walking through, we got this offer, and it was not a great offer. And so I called the agent. I'm like, tell me what's going on. She's like, well, let me tell you what's going on. We Googled your house. It's not my house, by the way, right?
Yeah.
We Googled your house. And and there was a domestic issue there, and the husband killed the wife. And you see, she said, go in the dining room, and there's a hole in the floor. You know what that is? That's a bullet hole.
Whoa.
I'm like, dude, I did not. It's not. I mean, it's not haunted. But I wasn't going to Google. I don't Google my houses. Do you, do you Google your houses?
I never Google. Never. Never.
I mean, I might look at history. Right?
I mean, I would
you
never.
never think about Googling a house.
For like a crime scene, for anything like.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
No, not at all.
We probably shouldn't.
Maybe we should start.
Anyway, we sold it to another buyer who was willing to, cover up with some putty the bullet hole.
But you never know what you walk into when you're selling the house.
You don't.
I mean, you just never know. You just never know.
That's what keeps it fun and fresh, and creative in my mind.
Fresh as in orange.
Yes. Yeah. I get, can you hear that little sometimes like in the back of my mind? Yeah, no, that's funny.
That's amazing. So, Mike, if you had to choose a career other than real estate, what would that be?
Gosh, man. Oh, that's good. I was in healthcare for multiple decades, and I love taking care of people. I mean, I love people. I love taking care of them. And really, I see what I'm doing today in real estate as just an extension of my clinical training.
Wow.
I would probably do healthcare. It is gratifying. The other thing I think I would do, maybe along the same lines, is I would do business consulting. Like, just from what I understand about owning my own real estate business, what I understand now about marketing and about watching my financials, P&Ls, and it would be fun to be a consultant, just to, because now we can recognize things and go into businesses and help people see the things they can't see. Right. Like you were asking earlier about, floors or counters or, finished basement or master. I love those questions because what it drives toward is when somebody's about to sell a home, they know the things that they don't like about their home.
Right.
Those might not be the things that the public cares about, but that's what they don't like about their home. In the same way, I think what we learn from being successful realtors is we see things about business where we could actually use this knowledge to help other entrepreneurs.
100%.
Hey,
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, leading from that question, I feel like because like being a realtor is more like handling your own business, right? Like
very much.
From accounting to marketing to advertising, social media, trying to help clients, all of these things, which we're happy to do. I think that's part of the thrill of the job, right? So with that being said, like how do you incorporate like the trends in the market, and what kind of trends do you see like now in the market that are affecting how you perceive your business or what you focus more in your business? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Some trends I'm seeing now I think are interesting. There is a movement now for what I guess we term as homesteading, and that's where people will buy 1 or 2 acres of land with a house, and they'll farm. And the whole idea is to raise vegetables to eat, to raise chickens to harvest, or to have eggs, right, or to raise a cow or pig. It's homesteading, and so of recent I've had more buyers ask for, hey, where can you find, not too far from the city, because we still want to go to the breweries, right? We still want to enjoy life, but we want 2, 3, 4 acres where we can be more self-sufficient. I think that's an interesting trend, much more so now than it has been in years past.
Is that like kind of related to what's happening with the economy? Do you feel like people get this sense like, I gotta be more like self-sufficient? Is that
I do think you go to Publix and there's no eggs, and the next logical thought is I need 4 acres.
Yes, I mean, chickens.
It's like A to B. That's what it works.
Yes.
No, I do think so. I think back in 2019, 2020, when we were dealing with COVID and we had so many businesses that were forced to figure out how to be productive without staffing these large offices, and how to be productive with video conferencing like Zoom or any of those. what we saw were people were able to not have to live within a drive of their office building. They could live anywhere and still be productive.
Right.
So no, I do think the things that happen in the economy certainly drive real estate.
Yeah.
Sure.
Our team leader, Jen Toomer, she says that real estate is a national large umbrella, but it's also very specific and local. Mm-hmm. And so I think we see those things here in Birmingham as well. People are looking for not everyone, but what I find now, people are looking for a couple, 2, 3 acres. A percentage of my business is also working with investors in commercial, and I'm seeing the same trends there where, office buildings are not as valuable as they once were. Retail space there's challenges with retail right now. I just read where Macy's is closing, for example, a lot of stores, not all, but a lot of stores. So the way that we conduct business, the way that we shop online, the way that we work from home, all those things have pretty big, impacts on the industry.
Sure. So we basically went from during the COVID years, not finding a webcam. I don't know if you
right.
Yeah, it was hard
because everybody
one.
Was buying webcams at that point to not being able to find eggs.
They $10, right? $12 for 8-12 eggs, maybe.
Puts it in perspective, right?
Yeah. But definitely. So, Mike. So you said a lot. You just said something that I kind of piqued my interest. You said the office buildings. These, I noticed that it was a big trend too, that a lot of these office buildings now are just sitting vacant.
Right.
But now they're turning those office buildings into apartments.
That's right.
Am I correct?
That's right.
So that's a big trend. So talking about trends, but yeah. Anyway, moving on to this next powerful question. How has the real estate market changed in the last 5 years?
Yeah. It is. I'll go back even further just for a little more context. I like context.
Yeah, I love it, man.
In 2008 and 2009, people always think back to this massive real estate crash, correction, whatever word you want to use. But from 2009, once the lending industry understood what it needed to do to prevent that from happening again, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way through 2018, 2019, we've been on a steady increase in volume, increase in prices. It's been very healthy. In 2020, when COVID hit, it became unhealthy really quickly because interest rates dropped, and the whole idea there was to keep the economy going. And so as interest rates dropped, everybody was ready to buy a house. And so that created an enormous shortage. And so what we saw was a otherwise pretty healthy market swing very radically to a hardcore seller's market. Sellers got everything. We had people 3, 4, 5 offers a day for 4 or 5 days.
Insane.
It was bananas. And the offers were like, hey, this is $50,000 over the list price. We don't need an inspection.
Bizarre.
I will bake you my grandmother's cake.
In the offer.
I'll remember that.
I swear. That is a truth, man. I mean, here is a homemade cake, right? Or we will actually, the buyer, we will actually pay all of your, usually traditionally buyers are asking for closing costs, right? From the seller because the seller has the equity. Well, for a couple of years, buyers were paying the seller's closing costs and the commit, so it's just a lot of things there. So that was 2020 and 21 as interest rates come back up. Yeah. The industry taps down, slows down a little bit with the number of buyers willing to buy. So, at the lowest, maybe it was about 3% interest. About a month ago, they were as high as about 7%. They may have touched 8% about a year or so ago.
2.75.
Yeah, I mean, that's beautiful, right?
And when we were closing on the house in 2021, the underwriter was like, enjoy the best interest rate you'll ever gonna have in your life.
Right.
And I did not understand at that point, I don't know why he's saying that. Maybe he's trying to tell me on something else. Maybe he's trying to tell me on a car.
History.
Hey, if we
kind of thing.
And still, I believe we have buyers willing to or wanting to, I should say, wait. Let me just wait until we see that again. But the reality is, if we ever see 2.75 again, something has gone really sideways, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say to those buyers and sellers who are waiting?
Yeah.
For those interest rates to kind of go back down again. What would you?
Yeah.
What would you say to those
just
people?
Hold your breath, and when you pass out, I'll put you in your new home. No. No, I mean, like, here's the thing. In reality, we can go back for decades and look at price values, interest rates, and traditionally over 50 years, the average, not the max, but the average interest rate was in the 7s. Maybe 7.22 or something along those lines. Don't hold me exactly, but that was the average of the last 50 years. What I do want to remind buyers that we're still well below average. That's the first thing, because it feels really high. The second thing is, and we are mapping this out today. One of the things I love about Keller Williams is that we watch the stats. We know what's happening.
I love it.
And although the number of homes being sold is down a little bit, it's not a crash, and the prices actually keep going up. So year over year over year, we keep going up in price. Here's the point to my buyers: go ahead and buy the house. Buy the house at 6.5%. Buy the house at 7%, because either number one, the rates will come down and you can refinance, and your payments will go down. Or number two, the rates never really change that much. But if you wait to buy that house a year from now, you're going to be probably at the same rate, maybe a little lower, but that price of that house is going to be a little bit higher, 4 or 5% per year.
And so this phrase I hear a lot, here, but date the rate and marry the home. You hear that phrase a lot now.
It's really true.
Yeah.
Don't get hung up on interest rate. Like, don't put your life on hold, right? I'm working with a couple now that they're not having their baby yet, but they're dreaming of, in the next year we're going to start a family. That's huge. Yeah, that's exciting. Don't worry about the difference in 6.5% and 6.25%. Right. Like, live life. That's just my personal philosophy.
Yeah.
Live life.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
The rest of it we'll figure it out.
Yeah, I feel like, aside from that point, which I think is very valid, there's something else too. Like, when someone had bought during COVID and they're thinking about moving, it hurts, right? Like, you have a house, you have a loan at like 3%, and now, because I was doing like calculations on the house that we were living in, and I was like, if I got my house at this interest rate, I was going to be paying another $1,000 a month. Right. So that kind of like hurts, right? Like, emotionally, you're like, I really don't want to let go of that 3% interest rate that I got. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of tricky, right?
Right.
When you have that, to lose it to another loan that is like 6%. But I know it's an outlier because it was COVID. Things were not normal, and hopefully COVID doesn't happen again.
Well, and I heard it explained this way, and it made really good sense with me. There's a certain number of people every year that, if the average American buys and sells a home every 5 to 7 years, there's a certain amount of people every year that are going to be ready this year to buy and sell.
Yep.
What happened during COVID was we borrowed from future years because the interest rate was so low. The people that in 22, 23, 24, and 2025, they went ahead and made those transactions, which just became really unhealthy. But go back to, and this is one of the things we talked about, like why I love taking care of people. I love consulting with my clients, not just selling them a house, but doing a real consultation. Go back to dig into what is your motivation. And it does hurt today because, dude, to go from 2.75% up to 6.5%, that is painful. However, why do you want to move? Why do you want to move? Tell me more about that. What happens to you if you stay? Well, we already don't have room enough for my children, and now we have another one on the way. Well, what happens if you don't move? So get people to understand, and this is not manipulation, and it's not a sales technique. Right. It's
concern.
You help people be honest with themselves, and that helps them realize, you know what? Life is too short to worry about a 0.25% interest or a 0.5% interest. Right. Let's go live life.
Which is what $10, $20 maybe, if that much. It's not a whole lot of difference in the look at the hard numbers.
Yep.
Yeah. Would you consider this market a buyer's market or a seller's market?
Oh, that's a great question. So in 21, 22, or 20, I should say, 20 and 21, a little bit in 22, was an extreme seller's market. And some people today do feel that we're in a buyer's market, but we're really not. Inventory today in Jefferson County is somewhere around just under, maybe under 2.5 months of inventory. When we look at inventory and what kind of market is it, what we look at is if it's less than 4 months of inventory, if it's less than 4 months of inventory, it's a seller's market. If it's more than 4 months, it's a little bit more of a buyer's market. So the pendulum is swinging toward the buyers. And how do we see that? We see that in buyers getting a little bit of closing costs from sellers now. We see that in sellers selling a little bit below what they have their home listed for. So there are ways that we can tell it's leaning toward, but it's not an extreme buyer's market.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of like in the middle.
We're really approaching balanced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's nice.
Very nice. So with that being said, let's kind of like try to hone down on, like, let's say sellers specifically. So let's say, I have a house, planning on selling it. Can you walk us through, like, I've never dealt with a real estate agent in my life, and I'm kind of hesitant to do that. Can you walk us through, like, kind of like the stages that a first time, I guess,
for some seller sure
can expect?
Yeah. I think again, the misconception is that we put a sign in the yard. We tell people what they're going to get for their house, and we put a sign in the yard, and then we'll see you at closing day, and I'm going to get my check.
I wish.
It doesn't work that way.
I wish it was.
That is nowhere near the truth, right?
Yeah.
And so what I want to communicate to all my sellers is, number one, you're hiring me as a consultant. You're not hiring me for that sign in your yard. You're hiring me for my negotiation skills. You're hiring me to guide you, truly to hold your hand. If the lights were out in this room, but I know the room, I can navigate the room, and I'm going to pull. As long as you've got my hand, we're going to go through this room. That's the job that I see for myself. So number one is I'm here with you the whole way. Number two, prep. The more prep you're willing to do on the front end, the faster your home is going to sell, and the more money that you're going to get for your home if you had not have done the prep.
Yep, I love it.
And so if there is one thing I would say is prep, because who wants to get the phone call at 8:45 in the morning? Hey, I've got a buyer. Can we come see it in 30 minutes? And you're picking up the laundry, grabbing yesterday's socks. You're trying to put stuff in the dishwasher. You know what I mean? You're throwing the cat in the dryer just to keep it out of the way. No, that's not fun at all.
Yeah.
A part of that we can't really help very much. It's just inconvenient to sell a home. But if you will prep, then the number of weeks of showings is significantly shorter. So go through the hard part first. It's like everything else in life, right? Do the hard part first. The rest of it becomes easy. When you do things when they're when you will do things up front when you need to do them, then you don't have to worry about the inconveniences as much later. So prep.
I love it. Prep.
I have a follow-up question to that. So the house is on the market, right? And let's say it's kind of like it's been 2 weeks, you haven't gotten a lot of traction on the house. What kind of steps, like, would the seller expect from a realtor to take? Of course, without, like, freaking out, right?
Yeah, sure.
We don't want anybody to freak out, whether it's the seller or the realtor. But of course, there's some kind of, you're listening to the market, for example. What kind of things do you adjust in that stage if you feel like you're not getting a lot of traction?
Well, I would say, first of all, it is not haphazard. There's a system, and as a professional, there are some markers. So, for example, if we get your house listed and we have no showings, statistically, I would say we're probably 6 to 10% overpriced. If we have several showings but no offers, statistically, I would say that we might be 3 to 4% overpriced. And so those are things that we're watching for in the first couple of weeks. And again, what should a client expect from a professional, from a realtor?
Right.
I think every week I like to touch base with my clients every week to give them an update. Hey, we had these showings. This was the feedback. Blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. I've done this amount of marketing. I've purchased these ads. I have, this is what I've done for you. I think it's important.
For sure.
Because I think what the client
That's good.
What the client sees is we come to their home, we get them to sign up, we show them pictures, and then hopefully we'll get a contract. Mm-hmm. And they don't see what we are probably doing behind the scenes. I think it's important to communicate that.
For sure. I think both ways, right?
Sure.
Like even sometimes the sellers or any kind of client, if they maybe like the relationship would turn sour a little bit just because of lack of communication.
So real, man.
Because there's so much going on in the process. Mm-hmm. Like let's say you're not communicating what you're doing in the background. They're thinking, well, he just put a sign, done deal. He's collecting his check, and if it's not selling, it's not his concern. Meanwhile, it's just a lack of communication.
Very much so.
I think this is a great follow-up question too. That was a great answer too. How do you have that conversation with that seller that's adamant, that's a lawyer, that he wants that price, okay? And how do you have that conversation with that particular seller?
Yeah, no. Well, setting expectations up front is important, but I'm also, again, very respectful. So when I have that conversation, and that person you're describing is a driver, I mean, they're not asking questions.
And by the way, Mike, he done marked your contract up. It's all red.
Oh, yeah. We have seen those, right?
Anyway, go ahead.
No. I think you're setting expectations and being very respectful. I know what I know. I don't feel like I have to prove. That's not true. It's not the way to say it. I don't feel. What's the word? Self-conscious or I don't have a lack of confidence when I go into a house. I have the confidence because I know the data.
Yeah.
But not every client wants to trust their largest investment if we don't know each other.
Sure.
And so clients have opinions. What I usually do, to be honest with you, is just, hey man, here are the numbers. This is how I interpret this data. This is what I think. How do you feel about that? And so I give them a chance. And there are times when the seller says, look, dude, this is what I want you to do. And I will say, I am happy to do that. Mm-hmm. I just want you to know this is what I know about the market. And in the back of my mind, I hope they're right, because if they're right and I'm wrong, we get to sell their house more quickly. I hope they're right. Sure. If I'm right, I'm just going to be communicating with them every couple of few days so they know that I'm thinking about their investment. It's a duty I have to my client to communicate often.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Good answer. I love it.
Yeah. Like going in with data, going in with backup, not just like, volumes. Hey, this is what I think, this is what the market thinks.
That's right.
Ultimately, it's the market, not us, that determine the price.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And just being able, again, I think, no matter where you are in life, if you're willing to care about your client,
I love it.
That matters. Mm-hmm. And some people, some clients I have worked with, they're not going to pick that up. But I do care, regardless of whether they know it or not. And the way I do is I care about their investment. I am looking at data, and I'm communicating that back to them. And I'm telling them what I've done, and I'm telling them what I think we need to do. I spent many years in corporate America. So in corporate America, if something wasn't working right, what did you have to have? You had to have what's your plan of action?
Plan of action.
What's your plan of action? So when I have those, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And before I met, when we did our monthly financial review, I couldn't just take the financials and talk about them without picking out 2 or 3 issues that weren't right, and then developing an action plan.
Right.
I treat my real estate business, or I should say, I treat my clients in the same deference that I had for my boss. In that I owe you, if you're paying me, I owe you to have a plan.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And so it's important to me to have that plan and be able to communicate it.
I mean, I've, working closely together in the last 6 months now or something, I've witnessed that firsthand, because like you telling me that it takes you 3 hours to do a market analysis versus going the easy route of like doing a short one, or that's something that one of the most important things is price. Like where do I price my house, right? And so you got to put enough resources and time into that topic to make it not look like, but to be prepared for that conversation with the sellers.
Right.
That is, they want to see how much they're going to make out of the house when they sell it.
Right.
I love it. The biggest elephant that's in the room, it's not a question I have been asked so far. The biggest elephant in the room that would kill a deal just like that.
Yeah.
It's the inspection report.
Oh, yeah.
How do you communicate that big elephant to the seller, to your seller, or to your buyer when it comes to the inspection report?
Yeah.
How do you interpret that to your client?
No, absolutely. Well, always I'm going to be very honest and transparent, right? So when we have an inspection, it really should be 40, 50, 60 pages.
Yeah.
Even on new construction. So the first expectation I want to set, whether I'm working with a buyer or I'm working with a seller, is, hey, there's 60 pages of information here. That does not mean the house is going to fall apart. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, if you don't get 40 pages, you may not have had the correct inspector.
Right.
It needs to be, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, hey, let's see if I'm working with a seller. The buyer's agent is going to bring us a request for repairs. And so I will certainly present those to my seller, and then we'll figure out, how do we want to negotiate? Would we prefer to negotiate a price reduction or a closing cost, or do you want to hire a contractor to get these things done? It's your choice, and I'm on your side. We're going to walk through this together.
I love it.
But it is customary in today's market that there probably are a few repairs being requested and being completed. I want to make sure my seller knows this is not abnormal. This is all normal for right now. And it's not always been that way, but it is now.
So when it comes to repairs, like, would you advise your buyer to put them in like a priority, like that's my top great. And then lowest, or just throw it in? Like, I feel like it would help the seller, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this too. Every buyer I work with says, Mike, here's the report. What do you think I should ask for? Mm-hmm. And I really decline to answer that question, and here's the reason why. I look at houses all the time. I am naturally a handyman, and I do DIY repairs all the time.
So am I.
Like, I'm not worried about that. There are very few things that are catastrophic.
Right.
And so I can deal with a lot, and I'm not worried about it. I know that if this is a home and this is a neighborhood where I want to be, and I need to put $15,000 into a foundation repair, or $25,000 into water remediation in the basement, I'm kind of okay with that because I'm in the house I want to be in. So I don't answer that for my buyers, because I think for the most of the time, I think it feels a whole lot worse than it really is. Big picture, is this the house you want? Is this in the neighborhood you want? Is that the 4 acres where you can raise your chickens and collect your eggs?
Yeah,
you can sell the eggs and pay for the foundation, right?
These days.
That right. No, so I think the first thing I tell my buyers is, hey, absolutely, I want you to tell me what's most important to you, because that's what matters. The other thing that I think is really important is I don't set up the inspection. Mm-hmm. I might connect a list with my buyer, like a list of inspectors with my buyer. I give them 3, 4, 5, whatever I give them. But I want my buyer to employ that inspector. I don't want the inspector to work for me. They need to work for the buyer. Yeah. And so the inspector and the buyer, if it's a good inspector, will get together, and the inspector most of the time will say, I've got 60 pages of issues, but these 3 are the really important ones. That's helpful. That doesn't really need to come from me. It needs to come from the inspector. So anyway, the way I approach that is, hey, if there are 2 or 3 things you want, let's group those. Let's make sure that we make it easy for the seller to interpret. Mm-hmm. We need a plumber to fix these 1, 2, or 3 things. We need an electrician to fix these 1, 2, or 3 things. We need a contractor to fix these.
Yep.
So that's kind of the way I go down that road.
Okay.
Love it. Awesome. I love it, Mike, man. We're having fun. So, another great question. what do new buyers need to know coming into the market? You know, from an expert such as yourself, how would that conversate?
Yeah. And I appreciate you calling me an expert. I don't know that I am one, but I love it, man. I'll take it all day long.
No, I think he was looking at me.
Oh, he was. That's right. He was. No. You know, when I sit down with buyers for the first time, there's just a few expectations that I want to set. First of all, you know, buyers think we have a secret book of listings because 20 years ago, that's what it was. Realtors had a listing book. It doesn't work that way now, right? All the buyers have access to social media, or they have access to Zillow or to Truly, or those, I might not even should mention them here, but you know, those large .com companies that aggregate.
Sponsored by.
Yes, right. Employed by, no. But so I tell my buyers very honestly, absolutely, I will search for your home, but people don't really hire me to find the house. What I find most of the time that buyers hire me for is I am here to be their advocate. I have an ethical and a legal responsibility. It's called a fiduciary. I have a fiduciary responsibility to my client, and what that means is I'm going to help them through the process. I'm going to advise them. I'm going to certainly do what they want to accomplish. I'm going to keep confidential information confidential, right. And those things matter. In reality, you know, people are going to hire me for negotiation. To have somebody who negotiates on their behalf. I think what most buyers do not know is when they call the agent whose number and name is on the sign in front of the house that they like, that agent already is committed to that seller.
Right.
And so the reason for a buyer to use a buyer's agent is so that as an agent, I can advocate for them. I can make sure that the contract that for their offer is exactly what they want to offer. And it works, you know, very similarly, where we sit down and we're going to talk about these things. We're going to talk about the process of, you know, getting pre-qualified, going to look at a bunch of houses, making an offer, doing the inspections, and then getting ready for closing. So we're going to talk about those things. And as a buyer, you would expect to hire me. We have what's called a buyer agency agreement. And that agreement basically states that you're hiring me as your agent officially. That, you know, my brokerage fee and compensation ultimately as a buyer you're responsible for. Now again, the good news about this market is for the most part the sellers are willing to help that buyer's agent compensation to entice an agent to bring buyers, right? So that's just how that process works.
Right. I do have a quick, because there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I just said a lot, right?
I'm thinking, I'm switching in my mind because there's so many things, and that happened to me before, where you just met your clients, buyers, right? And by law now, they have to sign the RECAD, which, if you can expand on that a little bit. Sure. And the buyer's agency agreement, right?
Right.
Some people are hesitant buying these because they're thinking, we just met you. Why are you asking us to sign documents, right? So can you talk a little bit about why we do that, and how easy is it to get out of this agreement in case something happens? Right?
Certainly, yeah. No, those are great questions. So there was a ruling that came out of a court case, and from that, our national organization, the National Association of Realtors, NAR for short, part of that is the expectations for every realtor in the U.S. is to make sure that before we show a house, we should do our state required disclosure, which you refer to as RECAD, which is basically a real estate agency disclosure form. Mm-hmm. What that means is there are different types of agents that you can hire a transaction broker, and that basically is a paper filler outer. That person doesn't advise you. If they don't help you. They just literally fill out the form. That's called a transaction broker. Yeah. You can also hire an agent that is a dual agent. That means that you're hiring an agent who represents the seller and you as the buyer, and there are just some details that you need to understand. And then finally, you can hire a single agent, and that is where you hire an agent who will advocate for you, period. And those things are all important because when it comes to, confidentiality, for example, if you're a pre-approved for $50,000 more than your offer, you may not want to tell the seller that they can counter hire because you have the ability to buy. That's confidential information.
Absolutely.
Or if you are desperate to have this house, that emotional desperateness probably needs to be kept confidential, right? Mm-hmm. So those are the types of things that I'm talking about.
Sure.
But that's the RECAD disclosure, and then you're asking also about like what forms are required right up front.
So before we move to that, just to make sure people know that in the state of Alabama, it is allowed for dual agency.
Sure.
Correct?
It is.
And it's my understanding that in other states it might not be, but Alabama is one of the states that you can represent both the buyer and the seller.
No, that's exactly right.
As long as they both know.
That's right.
That's the case, right?
That's right. Yeah. So, that's right. So if I am representing a seller personally, or at our brokerage, our Keller Williams brokerage is enormous, almost 500 agents. It's incredible.
Amazing.
I mean, we have an enormous percentage of business in Birmingham. Yeah. It is every single day almost that our broker has both sides, both the buy side and the sell side. So it actually happens quite frequently that there is limited consensual dual agency. And even closer to home, if for one of my listings, if a buyer calls me and says, hey, I want to look at your home, absolutely, I'm going to help them through that. If I've been working with a buyer for a long time and I'm working with a seller for a long time, that's a good example of when there would be a limited consensual dual agency, because I know the buyer and the seller well. If I have a home listed and a buyer randomly calls me, I don't know them, they call me as a service to my seller, absolutely, I will show them the home. But with that buyer, I'm going to work with them as a transaction broker.
Yes.
Because I don't have a relationship with that buyer. It makes more sense, and I keep my loyalty to my seller to be a transaction broker. Yeah. So those are some nuances.
Sure.
Nuances. That's what that is. But yes, in Alabama,
it's super important because there are details that we learn, right? But there's a lot of question marks in the public's mind of what is allowed, what is not allowed, what stay away from, or in state of Alabama versus other states. So, yeah, thank you for sharing.
Well, and I think it's important, sure. And I think it's important. Yeah. Like the goal, the mindset for us has always got to be, we have nothing to hide. Mm-hmm. Let's be very open and transparent about all the dynamics of this business transaction. Absolutely. And so that's the way we go down that road.
And just that number one thing that you align, and there's a silver lining, is trust.
100%. Absolutely.
It's earned, not expected.
100%. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It's getting better.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, and you asked about like how difficult is it to get out of these agreements, and so before we go show a home, at least as of right now at this recording, you as a buyer, you have to hire me as an agent before I can go show you this home. Now, you like if we're kind of dating, you don't really know me yet, you might not want to marry me on the first date.
Yes.
I
love it.
Right, yeah. My eyes kind of go there, right?
I mean, he doesn't have the purple hue.
Oh, I love it.
We need some background music, right? Just to set the moment just right.
I'm not a matchmaker.
Tone it down.
Do you feel like a third wheel?
Do I feel like a third wheel?
But truly, it is important that in a very short period of time, I explain to you what buyer agency is. But also, as a service, I want you to know you can fire me at any time. Mm-hmm. And that's very important. You can fire me.
You communicate that?
Absolutely. I say that you can fire me at any time.
I do the same thing.
No, right. I mean, Am I worried about getting fired? I'm not worried about it. Why? Because I do a really good job. That sounds arrogant. It's not my heart. My heart's intent that when I work with somebody, I want to put, and I know you guys, I know this about you. Mm-hmm. I'm learning this about you. Gotcha. You guys want to put people first. And that's why I don't worry about these rules. I follow them.
Sure.
And it's not really an issue.
So how do they do that? Is it as simple as, and I'm not advocating for anything, but I just really want to take out the fear of signing these documents.
Sure.
Would it be as simple as sending you a text message saying, "Hey, Mike, thank you so much for helping us. We're done," or does it have to be like official signed, notarized?
Yeah, no. I mean, if a client sends me a text or an email that says, "Hey, I no longer need your services. We're going in a different direction," I am done with that. I mean, that's written communication. Okay. I can show that to my broker, and as a whole, we're done.
So I think a lot of that is communicated, and Mike, I know you do a very good job of doing that with doing your buyer or your seller consult.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
That, I think that's the silver lining of interacting with your client. That, could you kind of elaborate on a little bit on how your strategic plan on how you deal with the seller and buyer consultation, how you just kind of build that trust from the get-go?
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. Well, in the beginning, I was working a lot of internet leads, and a lot of realtors start that way, and so the goal at that point was get the client to the house. You're excited about the house. Let's go see the house. And along the way, I would try to educate you as best as we can, right?
Yeah, get that money. Go ahead.
I don't do that now because I truly take a consultative approach. And so realtors that do that will say, "Hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee at a local coffee shop. Let's chat for a few minutes." Not hours, 20 minutes, and that's where I will sit down and go over the process with buyers. I just think it's helpful. And again, it comes to just being full disclosure, fully transparent. Mm-hmm. With my sellers, the same thing. I've certainly, if somebody calls me, and again, most of my business today is by referral. I mean, that's really almost the only way that we get our clients is by referral. Yeah. So reputation matters. How we treat people matters.
Yep.
And so if a seller says, "Hey, will you come sell my house?" I have a little bit of a question. If I don't know them, I have a questionnaire. Mm-hmm. I will do a little homework so I have a feel for what the house, the neighborhood. We'll go see the home. We'll take a look at what kind of staging might need to be done. But before I leave, we sit down and we have the same conversation with them about, how does agency work and, what should you expect from me from a communication standpoint?
Yeah.
How are we going to go through the process together?
It's strong. It's good information.
Yeah.
Great information.
Absolutely. So with that being said, when you have a situation where you're in front of the seller, right? And it's because it happens. Like I'm asking because it's real, right?
Oh,
like
yeah, real life.
Podcast is real talking. Real estate, right? And so you're having this discussion with the sellers, and the husband and the wife do not agree at all on the approach or how much should we sell for. How do you normally, because it's life, it happens, people disagree, we know, and so how do you really handle that while you're at that initial meeting?
Yeah, that is such a great question, and that is one of the funnest things we get to do, is we sometimes get to help people in spite of themselves. Mm-hmm. And I say this often, I think the most important skill I've learned in how to be an adult is how to keep my mouth shut.
Ooh, Mike.
So sometimes
I'm still learning.
I'm running. I'm sorry.
Sometimes there's a blood trail, right? From not from tobacco, but from biting my tongue.
Yeah. My wife will high five you right now.
Right. But an honest answer to an honest question.
Yeah.
Number one, I use data because data is it's truth. In other words, when we can look at these comparable homes, we know what's happening in the market.
Yes.
We look at data from a 30,000 foot view, we look at data from a neighborhood view, and then we look at data from an individual view. So we really rely on the data. And we talk about different ways to interpret that data. So there's more than one interpretation, right? So we talk that through. But the other thing I do with couples is I really want to understand your motivation. Right? Stephen Covey said 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, I love that book.
Seek first to understand.
Yep.
So I want to understand, like, why. Tell me about why are you moving. Tell me about what's the real motivation. Tell me about what your future looks like. Tell me about what happens if this house doesn't sell. Tell me about your timeline.
Yep.
Where do you want to spend Christmas next year? And this, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I dig into that, and that's for the sole purpose of understanding these people.
Yeah.
And if I understand what their biggest motivations are, then as I guide them through the process, I am truly helping them get what they really want.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And so that's kind of the scenario. I tell you what I don't do is I don't take sides.
Neutral.
Neutral. Right? My listing uniform is a white and a black striped referee. No.
Punching bag.
But I think so much goes back into when you sit down, you number one, you really care.
Yeah.
You really care, not about the commission check. You care about helping these guys move to the next chapter in their lives. And then because you care, you understand the data and can be confident with it. And because you care, you can really dig into the deep motivation, the pain and the pleasure of why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah. So from one side, you care absolutely, but you're also backing it up with data.
You really need to be both. Right. And again, I see myself as a professional. I see myself as if I really care as much as I say I care, then that will be evidenced by the preparation that I do, the education that I give myself to make sure that I'm always on the top of my game.
Right. Very nice.
For sure.
So with this, Mike, we're going to come to sadly, the last question of the day, which is, so let's say a real estate agent, they're starting new, right? What would be like the best, you've been in the market, you have all experience, right? And as anything in life, whether it's marriage, first year in marriage is different than the 8th year in marriage. Business.
Oh, did I laugh out loud just then?
The first 7 years. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Year number 21.
Yeah.
So with that, and I'm trying to cut that off so you don't get in more trouble with that comment. But
Thank you.
So what would you give, let's say you go back to your first year in real estate, what would you give yourself advice when you were in that position?
Wow, good question.
Yeah, you're making me think. I remember I had a boss when I was promoted to the role of an area vice president in a company that I used to work for in a different industry. The first day on the job, my boss came to me and said, just always do the right thing. Which sounds so simple, right?
Great answer.
But if you always put people first, as a new agent, that's what I would say. Always put people first. And so do you need to become skilled? Yes. Do you need to understand how comparables work? Yes. You can learn all of those skills. Do you need to read people skills books? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But always do the right thing. Always know that if there's a scenario where do I need to pay for this or should the client pay for this? If there's a question, then I'm going to pay for that.
Yeah.
You just always do the right thing. You treat people right. You'll never have to worry about, that doesn't mean you won't get sued, but you'll never have to worry about getting in trouble with your license.
That's
if
good.
you always do the right thing. You never worry about walking away thinking, I don't know that I'll ever talk to that client again because I'm embarrassed about how something turned out.
Right.
You always do the right thing. You'll be able to maintain those relationships as much as it is under your control.
Very nice.
And your integrity will definitely withstand any type of pressure.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Last forever.
Absolutely. You know what I would tell them?
What would you tell them?
My first year in real estate is have more fun.
Dude.
In the process.
So good.
Because sometimes you take it serious, which you should, right? Like from a standpoint, like what you're talking about is perfectly aligns with what I'm saying. I'm not saying disregard that. But at the same
You're
time...
like, forget it, dude. Let's have some fun, man.
That's how it sounded.
Have fun.
I don't know what you said. Let's just have fun and see
I'm
what
the
happens.
stuffy old man here at the table. You're like, dude, let's do it.
Have you seen my gray beard?
I love
But,
it.
honestly, it's like if you don't enjoy what you do, and I think people can sense, if you don't enjoy what you do and you're in front of them and they're stressed, the home buying or selling experience is very stressful, especially if you have to do it at the same time. You're selling and buying, like forget it.
It's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on. You got to do it at the time is super important, all of that stuff. So you got to be there, like kind of taking that stress out a little bit, and like if you're stressed too, they can feel it, and that's where like the comment of like just a little bit, relax a little bit, like have fun and go through the process with an attitude of like positive attitude.
Absolutely,
it'll work out.
And I live by, Mike. You keep saying the word care.
Mm-hmm.
I love that word. I think people know you can't fake it.
So true, man.
I mean, when they see that person, but like. I live by 3 C's. And the first one is care, concern, and compassion. Nice. And in this business, passion as well. But, man, you show people that you care. You show them that you're concerned, and you engage in them, and they see that. That's trust. That's
right.
The first level of trust.
That's right.
That you guarantee them, that you let them know that you care about them. You are concerned about what their needs are, and you're giving them the best information possible. And what you did today was incredible. Just giving great information for those young buyers and those sellers that's sitting on the shelf, or like, should I buy, should I sell? And great information today. A lot of information that they can learn from. So
it was fun.
Really, dude, I appreciate you guys.
I don't want it to end.
I know, right?
Do we have to stop?
Can we just order some pizza and keep going, right?
We'll have a party, right? I love it.
Right, well, I am appreciative you guys invited me in. This is definitely no small thing.
Boom.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You.
Yeah.
Hey, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.
And hey, we'll pick another topic and we'll have you again.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.